All right. Let me admit all. Here we go. Almost there. That someday I'll get that actually working properly. And let me update my webcam. There we go. Hey everyone. Hope you're doing well. Welcome.
Hello.
We got a guest today, Shin from Spanova. You have your own AutoHotkey YouTube channel, and we were chatting, making a couple videos earlier, and it ended up, man, actually, what time have we been on for 2 hours already?
2 hours or something, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so I just said, hey, why don't you come and join here too? It's funny because we were talking, and he says he doesn't actually talk to other AutoHotkey people a lot. He writes scripts and helps people and stuff, but he's not actually talking to them. And we had a lot of fun. Good chat.
Yeah. This is actually something that we're trying to build as a community of AutoHotkey like-minded individuals.
Absolutely.
Not only chat a little bit, but also help people who are, looking for some answers.
And Tom from Tab Nation is on the call here. He has a YouTube channel as well.
Hello.
And here comes John.
Hello.
What I wanted to bring up though was Tom's also streaming this same thing to his channel, and it's something maybe if you're interested, you could also be doing it to yours at some point if you ever wanted to. The thing is, and this is where Tom and we were chatting about it, like, boy, it was like 6 months ago now? I don't know. It was a while ago. We both like doing live streams, but when you're the only person, it's hard to watch the chats, talk to people, and do code. But when you have a couple people, that can help with the stuff, it makes it so much funner and easier.
I agree.
Hi, John.
Yeah,
welcome.
John.
Hi, how are you?
Everything good?
Yeah.
So, anyone have anything they're working on? I saw Lasha Bradzelli in the chat and YouTube. Does anybody have any questions or anything they're working on? So this is where it gets fun, is some people will join the Zoom meeting and some people just chime in on the chat, the YouTube chat besides the Zoom chat. It gets very confusing when you're trying them. And then Tom has his chat going also. So it does get a little
we get a few questions. So just to chime in, remember, I would say that we are working on this program that is connecting to an API and getting the information about the participants in a Zoom meeting and stuff like that. And in there, we have been taking a look at some functions, especially for charting information. And we saw this function bar chart out there, which was a very nice function. And we also noticed that you could do some charting with Excel as well, like the COM object from Excel directly. And we have been coming up with various solutions and noticing which ones, the advantages and the disadvantages. In your case, Shin, you said that you work with window information like images, and there's always a better way to do it. Like, for example, the AutoHotkey way of doing it is a little bit slower. So you develop something a little bit better. It's the same with anything, like charting with Excel is a little bit slow. So there came up somebody with the GDI library and it made it a little bit faster. So there's always room for improvement. And I think it is always good to kind of like chat with people who are doing stuff in different areas, because there's somebody that came up with something better at some point. So, it is always good to kind of like chat a little bit.
Isn't our life always about looking for something better? There's always
Indeed, it is. It is.
Now, actually, why don't you go ahead and now double count? Let's cover a little bit of that class that you were, just because I think it's really interesting, right? The speedy image search class that you had written. Just demonstrate if you're interested. You want to demonstrate it a little?
Yeah, I can. Just give like an overview of how to use it.
Yeah.
Just a quick. How about even just what it does? So that way, anyone that wants to learn more can know, because I think you said you've made a video on it, right? You and I did one this morning also. So we don't have to necessarily go into all the how, but just there's a couple really cool things about it, right? That I thought.
Do you want to share screens or do you just want me to give an overview?
No, share the screen. That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no right answer, right? Don't get me wrong. So whatever you're comfortable with. I didn't mean to put you on the spot either.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal. Honestly, I made it because I really want to give, like I said, newcomers who aren't as experienced ways to do things that would just be too difficult with the normal stuff. So, for instance, I'll just log in here really quick. And I'll show you, like, if you can use it for anything. It doesn't have to be a game. It can be a program in the background where you want to monitor like a light changing or something, or anything that you. I guess that's another thing, is that it does work in the background on windows that are not in the foreground. So
Yeah,
if they're behind an object,
that's the best. The best part of it is like, dude, that's like amazing.
so I'm just going to withdraw some items, and I already have images. It's just like the default one. You have to save a local image and then you use that. And I'll just hide this really quick. And assuming that you're just starting, you include the file, you create a new instance of the class. And let's say I just wanted to know how many of these items are on this Windows screen. So it'll only scan this one window, and it doesn't, like I said, doesn't matter if it's in the foreground. So I'll hide it for now just to show you. So I'll just do a message box here for scan, and then its image count is one of the functions.
Zoom in a little bit.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Thank you. Not that
And,
you've ever done having a YouTube channel. I'm sure you used to.
Yeah. But this is as easy as it is. You just do the function, you give it that. There are optional parameters here that which would be a variance. So if pixels change a little bit, you can change that. But if I go ahead and run that, it'll give me 26. And if I look in here, I have 26. It's 28 total, and 2 of them aren't the items, so it's 26. And you can do whatever you want with that. Then, like I said, you can specify variants. Here are the functions. Then it'll have everything that you're used to. So you can get the X and Y. You can specify the variants. Then you have access to an interesting one here, which is the image array. And it will actually return all the positions of the images in an array with mouse coordinates.
Oh, wow.
So if you're playing a game and you want to know what's the closest image to this point on screen, boom, you can get it, or you can loop through them all. So
holy crap. You know what? You just, I don't know if your function does this, but just what you just said about getting the one that is closest, you know that arrays are sorted automatically. So if you are storing the arrays in XY coordinates, the closest coordinates are going to be on top. Those are going to be the first ones that you're going to see. So basically, it automatically sorted by the closest one.
Well, it doesn't sort that way, but these are things that can be added. You can add a function.
That's what I mean.
I might add a function that says find closest image to point. So I mean, that might work as well. So.
And basically, the point I'm making is, if you're at any point doing that, just having an object that only contains coordinates, right? They are going to be automatically sorted by the closest to the left side of the screen. Like, yeah. So closest to the top left, right? But if you're actually getting from the mouse position, stuff like that.
But Isaiah, to your both your points, if he actually calculated that distance and used that as the first parameter, then it would be sorted by the closest point.
Indeed. So basically, it is interesting. For me, it blew my mind that you just said that, because I didn't know that was possible. And that's the point. Just you mentioning that it is out there, it makes it so that other people like me, for example, if I'm making a program, I know that there's a tool out there that does that. Even if I don't remember the name right now, but I know that I will be able to get it at some point. And like, oh yeah.
And for those that maybe heard it but didn't really digest it, because you actually did, I don't know if it was purposefully, you did a perfect example of the images you were searching for were not in front, right? They were hidden behind.
Yes.
That is the part, to me, when you first told me that, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, image search on a background image? That is
that's amazing. Yeah.
And I should specify, if you wanted to be more like the original use case, which does the desktop, you just don't supply a window title and it will scan the desktop instead. Right. But in that case, it needs to be in the foreground.
Yes. Oh wow, that's amazing.
But also, I want to know if anybody is interested in this in chat. I don't know how many people are watching, but if you want extra things added, just let me know. If I can do it, I'll definitely add it in there.
Yeah. That is.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So.
Yeah, and I noticed how fast it is as well. So one of the other things, and Joe, you have dealt with this previously. Sometimes searching the screen takes a little bit longer than you want, and especially if you're looking for many instances of something, especially if it's going like, looping through stuff, it can take a little bit longer. I noticed that this was instantaneously, even if the window was in the background. I was like, oh wow.
Well, I was showing Joe some, because I actually have tests where I did each call with transparency without 500 times, and I monitored how long it took. And the let's say the default image search with variance, it took around 140 milliseconds for me. Mine does it about 76, and that's just the image search. But if you're trying to get all the images, it took let's see here. It also took 76 just to get all the images with variance. Without variance, it was 35. This is with worst case scenario, with the images being in the bottom right corner of a 2K monitor, 2K resolution monitor. So if they were more in the middle, it'd be about half that maybe.
Wow, that's insane. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I really hope some newcomers find some use for this and really enjoy it. So.
Honestly, we're going to take a look at it just as something as maybe we want to borrow, because that's not that I do image stuff a lot, but when you do want it, having it where it has to be visible is very annoying. So that's
yes.
Right. Yep. So again, does anyone have anything they're working on? Any questions? Anything that they're stuck on? I mean, we got to make up something. The guy's not here yet, and he'll go. There's one guy that pops in here, and he always has questions.
Yeah. He's awesome. He's always every Friday here.
And his ears were burning. Hold on, he's coming in. His ears
there he is. Hey.
We were just saying, where's Guy? Where's all our questions?
Hello.
Hey, Guy, how are you doing?
Good.
#1 fan.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I learned so much. I mean, just even if you talk totally off topic, I'm not actually programming at the moment. You learn so much by listening to other people. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, we love talking to you. You have like some pretty good questions. Complex people. Well, you're all over the place. It's awesome.
Last week you showed us this operator with a question mark and a colon in brackets, the
Oh, right. Yeah.
What did you call it? A trinary.
The ternary operator.
Ternary operator. I found that so useful in GUIs, whether you check the checkbox or not.
Yes.
It saves me tons of code.
Indeed. Actually, and it is funny because that's the area where I code the most, like GUIs and stuff, and that's where I use it all the time.
It saves me so many lines.
Yes. You make.
I remember when I first found that was huge. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So another, can I ask some questions? I've got some really quickies.
Go ahead.
Okay. When I check the checkbox, can I get it to refresh the screen and change another edit box elsewhere? I know I can, but how do I do that? Does it submit automatically when you check the checkbox?
Well, I don't know if somebody else wants to answer that one.
I definitely don't want to.
You definitely don't want to.
I'll give you an example. I have an edit, and if someone checks a checkbox, I want that edit to be disabled.
Yeah, I know. That is totally doable. That is totally doable.
I'm sure anything is doable. The question is how.
How? Right. Remember that all your controls in a GUI, you can attach a label or a function to it.
Yeah.
So the only thing that you have to do for your checkbox is to add a function to it, and the function, what it does is either submit your GUI completely or just get the information from that checkbox by itself, and then you just use an if statement. So if it is checked, then go ahead and disable the other thing or not. So I'm not really sure if that's enough information for you to understand what I'm trying to say.
It is. Can I do it in one line within the code, or do I need to have a separate function?
No, you have to have a function or a label for that. You cannot do it directly in the GUI itself. So the checkbox in the options will have a G label that points to a function or a label, And in that label is where you're going to either submit the GUI or get the value from the checkbox, which that's what I would rather do. I would just get the value from that particular checkbox only, so that I don't have to submit the whole GUI. And you get that with control get. You do the control get, GUI control get, to get the status of that particular checkbox, and then you just do the if statement with it.
Is it possible to do submit the edit box the way I want it to, and then underneath it have a line saying if checkbox disable?
Yeah.
And then I don't need a function. It'll draw the edit box, place what I want in it, and then gray it out so the user can see it. Can't interact with it.
No. So yeah. So you can create the edit box with the text.
Yes.
Right below it, disable it. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, you can do that. Right.
Yeah.
Now,
so,
for the checkbox,
disable it.
Yeah, if you want to, that's okay.
If the checkbox is checked, disable it.
Right. Exactly. Now, after that, what you want to do on the checkbox itself, have a G label that whenever you click on it, it will go ahead and enable and disable the GUI. That's a separate thing, and it has to be on its own G label.
Okay, fine. Okay.
And maybe just good to know that you can have by default the checkbox disabled by using the disabled option.
Yes. Yep.
Totally.
And then you react to changes with the label or the function.
I think Jan has done that a lot in his GUI, right? Have you done that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a GUI with tons of controls and showing only part of them using kind of tabs, but instead of having tabs at the top, which was limitation, I have kind of tabs on the left, a kind of menu. So depending on which tab you click, there's an object helping to do that, but hiding every controls except those on the tab that you click. So it's kind of simulating tabs. So yeah. I've done a lot of that. Not that I like it, but that's the way. That's the way to make something easy to use. And yeah.
Have you ever, John? Have you ever heard about the accordion control?
Maybe I looked at that, but I don't remember.
So basically, the accordion control. The problem is
it will open a section, and if you click somewhere else, it will close the section that was open.
Right, exactly. And sadly, it's not exposed to AutoHotkey by default. So using the GUI command, you do not have access to it. But you know that the GUI command allows you to use custom controls, and you could add that. And that would automatically allow you to have a left menu that expands contract, and it sends the messages that you need to actually show and disable the controls instead of using if-else statements. But yeah, it is kind of like one of those controls. There's so many controls out there that we don't use that often, but
I can show you the end result of what I was talking about.
Yeah, right
here until we have a question.
Well, real quickly, someone asked if the regular image search works with programs minimized as well. And Spanova, if I remember correctly from talking to you, even your tool, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't work if the image is minimized. It just doesn't have to be in the foreground. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, I actually didn't see that. But yeah, it doesn't work minimized because the window doesn't get refreshed when it's minimized. You don't get anything.
Which is smart, because why would Windows be doing that if it's not visible? Why would they be spending resources? Anyway, cool. Thank you. But
just to complete my point, Joe, if you allow, so that's this window here. So when you click General, by default, you see all the controls on the General Options tab, and when you click on these items here, it will go through all the controls of all the tabs, hiding those that are not the one that are here. So it's using object and the loops and things like that. It's not that bad in terms of number of lines of code, but it's been quite fun too.
And that's the thing, Guy. This is basically what you're trying to do. The only thing is that in his case, it's a little bit more complex because it is about a lot of controls. In your case, it's just one edit control. So it is going to be easier for you to just go ahead and manage.
And so if you have only 5 sections, using tabs, there's tab 2, tab 3. I think there are 3 tab control.
Yeah.
The most recent, I think, is the best tab 3. if I remember well, allow you to separate your controls in various sections without having to do all the code that I've done. But I had too many controls to use the tab control.
So the question I have is, when you use the GI control comma enable, you need, is it the V label or the G label you try to put in there?
No, G label, because the V is a variable.
Okay, so if I don't have a G label, I just put one in for the sake of it.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Not
quite
sure
catch
if
that.
I got the question correctly.
Yeah, me neither.
If I don't have a G label for that edit, it's an edit, so it's got a V label. So I'll just put, let's say, G label, call it edit 1, for instance, and then.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys, first of all, do you guys have any questions whatsoever? Because if not, I could just show you an example, a quick example. And that would be a little bit easier for you to kind of grasp what we're trying to say, right? So first of all, let's see if anybody else has additional questions before I go into that.
Yeah, I'm just testing it out as we speak, so you carry on.
Okay, so let me see. Anybody from Thomas' channel? Anybody
Pretty quiet here.
Okay.
It's a quiet day.
It's okay. When people,
it's nice weather. Everybody's outside.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and show a little bit of what I'm saying, because it shouldn't be like much code to do. So, and by the way, John, I will mention something about the way how you're doing it and how I arrived to the same, well, not the same, but another approach to what you're doing.
Yeah,
that
good.
maybe you might be interested in later on.
Yeah.
So here's something, Guy. So we have a GUI, add, edit, control. It is going to be disabled by default. It's going to have some text, new text. Let's go ahead and say GUI show. Let's see if I have what I'm expecting. There you go. Let's have a width of 100. There you go. So we have a disabled control, right? Now I want to add a GUI, add, this is going to be a checkbox. It's going to be checked. I think it's checked.
Yes.
And that is going to be right next to the box. And I'm going to have X plus 10 here. So they're one after the other, right? Yep. Now, Y previous minus 3. That is something annoying about GUIs, but yeah, here we go. Let's make it 5. Now, this is exactly probably what you're looking for.
Yes.
Okay. And what you want is that when you click here, it enables and disables this thing, right?
Correct.
So my checkbox is going to be disabled by default. So not checked, so checked.
Unchecked.
So I think check 0 would do that too. So it is unchecked, right?
Okay.
Very good. What I said is that now we need a G label on the checkbox, not on the edit control, on the checkbox, okay? Because the checkbox is the one that whenever I click on it, it's going to fire up and perform the actions.
Okay.
So let's say this checkbox is going to be update GUI, whatever it is, right? This update GUI, we're going to have a return right here. And now we have either a function or
a label.
Let's go with the label for now.
It's easier. Yeah.
Right. This is where the trick comes into place. First of all, I want to know the status of the checkbox. As I want to have information about the checkbox, I would need a variable for that.
Yeah.
So this is going to be edit status. I'm going to name it like that.
Okay.
So what I could do is either GUI submit, no hide.
Yes.
And that would get all the information on the box with a comma here. So let me just put the comma there. That would get all the variables in the GUI. In this case, as I just want the status of the checkbox, I could use the GUI get control, GUI control get. This allows me to just say get edit status, and that would tell me just that variable. It's not going to get the whole GUI. It's just that variable that I want.
Hang on. I'm losing you.
Sorry. So
okay, I've got a window issue.
Okay.
It's my fault, not yours.
Don't worry. So basically,
hold on. Here's a tissue.
Thank you.
Now, GUI control get is a command that allows me to get information about a control. Anytime there are certain things that I can get, like the position, or in this case, the variable information. And what I'm doing is just using the name of the variable of that control. And that in that variable is going to be either true or
not.
false. Exactly. Yeah. So if I set a message box here for edit status, what is going to happen is that whenever I click on that, I should get either 1 if it is checked. Yep. Notice that it's checked, or a 0 if it is not checked. You see that? So I'm just getting the status of that control into that variable. And now I could use that as an if statement. If edit status, then GUI control, and then I say enable. And this is why I use an editor, because I never seem to remember how the parameters go. So I have the subcommand, the control ID. So GUI control enable, and I want to enable my edit box. Yes. Now my edit box does not have a variable yet. So let me add a variable for that. My edit box is my edit control, right? That's the name.
So you identify the edit box.
Right, because now I want
variable.
I want to
think I had to create a label. Okay.
Right. No, but I need the variable here because that's how I'm going to identify it. Else, if it is not set up, then GUI disable. And you will see how I convert this into a one-liner in a second.
Okay.
GUI control and then disable. So now my control would get enabled or disabled whether I have it checked. You see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the code that you're looking for.
Okay.
Now I would convert this into a ternary, right? Because if it is an if-else statement,
yeah,
then I could just go ahead and do a ternary there. So now I just delete all that. And I force an expression, which in AutoHotkey version 1 is not by default. And now I'm checking whether edit status is set or not. Yes. So if it is true, it's going to do enable. And as this is an expression now, I have to convert this into text. Yes. Or disable. There you go. So now I have a two-liner, one to get the status, and the second one that if it is set, it's going to say enable. If it is not set, it's going to say disable for the edit control. I'm not sure if you were able to follow me on that. Well,
I was absolutely. It's getting the syntax of whether it's a G or a V and the right positioning and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So my edit control is already set up. It's easy. And again, right. Just watching you work there, I've learned that you can have YP -3, which is like awesome.
Yeah. So just let me go ahead and talk about that. Is the Y position, the previous position? That's what the P stands for the previous. So it is getting the Y position from the previous control. So I'm putting it on the same level.
Yes.
And I'm just removing 3 pixels from it because the text controls have a 3 pixel variance to them, or 2 pixel variance. I'm never quite enough. And that's what I'm doing that for. But in general, whenever you're doing this, now you have a two-liner that would do exactly what you're looking for, which is enabling or disabling an edit control, whether it's checked or not checked. And you can have many other things happening when you click on the edit box. Oh, sorry, the thing. To clarify what the V and G do, V, think about it as variable. It just stores variable information into that variable, right? And G, think about it as go-to. It goes to that label, or
go sub rather than go to.
Yeah, go sub or go to. That's the reason why it's called a G label. Go to that label or go to that sub. So that's what it stands for. After you get it, like notice that I never start with the variables for the controls. If I don't need them, I don't set them. When I start saying, look, oh, I need that information, then I go ahead and set the variables on my options.
Well, as an edit, generally, as an edit, it's a variable input of some sort, isn't it?
So usually you need that very often, yes. So I would agree on that.
Could I jump in with some suggestion?
Sure.
You could continue to share your screen. Okay. In fact, if you have a variable, a V variable, edit status here, in the update GUI command,
Here.
you could start with GUI submit no hide.
Yeah, exactly. So I could start with GUI submit no hide, which is the first thing I mentioned. Like you could do that.
And you could disable that, and then the v edit status will become automatically a variable that you can access as if you would have used the GUI control get.
That is right.
A different way of doing that to get the same result.
Right.
And also, but the advantage of using the GUI control get is that you could put the result of the content, in fact, of this control in another variable. So the first,
yes, I could put it in a different.
Yes, is using a kind of shortcut that is good to know. Yes. But you could have your variable in my naming convention. I start yes/no variable by BLN for Boolean. They are true or false.
So Boolean.
No, I mean on line 7.
I'm sorry.
The first parameter on line 7 is the variable that
where you want to save it to.
That will contain the result. Yes, no, for example. And then the other variable would be your edit status.
Right.
So just different ways of doing that, but it is interesting to know that GUI control get, if you put just the name of the v variable, it is a shortcut. Does the same, which is and then you just change the variable on line 8 to keep this working, and it should still work. Just
so just to kind of like clarify, if you use GUI submit no hide, the name of the variable that you set up on your GUI is the only one that you will be able to access down here, because it's going to use that name, right?
It becomes a global variable as any other variable that you would have in your
code. Why set up a third variable? It's just easier, isn't it?
Well, it depends.
Sometimes you need to have something that you will be able to manipulate without changing the value of the control.
Okay.
And John, basically, as he just mentioned, he's using a naming convention. And that little detail makes it so that if I have a name on my control that is not following the naming convention for whatever reason, I just want to put a quick name. But down here on my code, I do want to follow my naming convention, then using the GUI control get to have the value, but on my naming convention.
Boolean.
Right. Then it makes a little bit more sense in his case. Okay. So basically, I gave you a little bit of code that goes ahead and does exactly what you're looking for. And we also talked a little bit about the ternary operator and where would I use it instead of an if and else statement, right?
No, absolutely. And this is part of learning program. It's not just about you've opened a Pandora's box.
And I'm using it everywhere, ternary. And my convention, talking about convention, is that just to make ternary operation clear, I put them between parentheses. And I'm not the only one doing that. I've seen others doing that. So it indicates at the beginning that, oops, that's something that will depend until, and it closes until you have the closing parenthesis, because when you start using it, often you will embed this inside other ternary. You can embed ternary operation inside ternary operation. So when you have 3 possibilities, for example, if yes, do that. If no, depending on something else, do this or do that. So then parenthesis will save your life.
When we were talking about that last time, actually, Joe was mentioning about having many ternary operations kind of like nested.
And now we have the switch option that is available that can also be another solution when you have multiple possibilities.
So that is awesome. And that made my life a lot easier learning that. Another question is when you have 2 screens, like settings 1 and settings 2, and you want to switch between the 2 screens, without having to destroy them and then rebuild them. How do you go about doing that? I've done it, but I've had to destroy it and rebuild it every time. So it's not a switch. It tends to be a pause while it redraws everything.
No. So here's, and it is a very interesting question that you came to this, because it taps into what I was telling to John. So his method of doing it is that when you click on a button, it goes ahead and enables shows or disables a bunch of controls, right?
Yes.
My solution to that goes a little bit closer to what you are describing right now. So your solution is probably a very good solution, by the way.
Okay. Well, it works, but when you switch the buttons, there's like it vanishes, and then you got to wait a few seconds while the new control pops up.
Yeah.
But in my case, what I ended up doing is that all of this here, I have a main GUI up here, and below where it says general preferences, down there, that is another GUI. So that is a GUI that is a child of the main GUI. So that way it moves around with the main GUI and everything, right? Now, I created the GUI once, which has all the controls that I need. And now when I click on this button, it actually hides that one and shows a different GUI. It's not destroying them. It's actually hiding them and showing them with GUI show and GUI hide. Okay. So basically, instead of looping through the controls to hide them and show them, or looping through through each of them individually, I actually have a whole GUI that I show and hide. And my code.
Yeah, so you have GUI inside the GUI.
Right, exactly. So
I have GUI inside the GUI. Yeah,
right. So basically, what I'm doing is just hiding and showing different GUIs when I click on this thing.
Never did that.
Right. No.
That looks a lot more modern and a lot more eloquent.
Yeah. And just going back to Guy question about closing or destroying the GUI
itself.
Usually you have two buttons at the bottom of your GUI, OK or cancel or close.
Or close, right, yeah.
Or you can have apply, but let's say you have OK and cancel. If you click OK, you go to, with the G label, to somewhere where you will submit. Get the control, get the content of your GUI and do something with that.
Exactly.
If you do cancel, all what you have to do is to call GUI or cancel. There's a cancel command, GUI, cancel. But in both cases, your GUI will still be alive. It just will be, so you could show it again later if you need to.
I don't need to. It's more, one is once in a lifetime kind of thing. It's not something you go into regularly. But
there is a destroy command if you wish really to destroy it, but then you will lose all the content and all the variables that
you have to recreate it. So basically, most of the times, and this is what we're referring to. So you have GUI hide, you have GUI destroy. Destroy and GUI cancel. Now, GUI hide and GUI cancel essentially do the same thing.
Yeah.
So they just simply put the GUI out of view, make it invisible, but the GUI still exists.
Yes.
So you don't have to recreate it.
And they are synonyms in the
they are
documentation.
Right. They are synonyms, but the GUI destroy not only hides it, it actually destroys the whole GUI, and you would have to recreate it again.
Correct.
In your case, as I'm getting it, is that you're destroying the GUI, and later on you have to recreate it again, and that takes a little bit of time, and it shows like flashes. It flashes. To avoid the flash, instead of destroying, just hide it. Just use GUI hide and then GUI show.
Okay. Now, these are the GUIs that are for preferences. So you use it once. When you get the program for the first time, that's when you set it up.
Yeah.
You never have to go into there again, ever.
No.
The flash isn't a big deal. But I like your nested approach. It's lovely. Is there an example code somewhere that I can look at that particular bit of code and learn from it?
Yes. So basically, the problem is that this code is really old. I didn't have the GUI, what was it, cancel at the time.
Yes.
So I didn't have that option. That's the reason why I didn't use it. But and at that time, you couldn't name your GUIs either. So my code, the AutoHotkey toolkit, is out there. I think I have shared it.
Yes,
already.
I have it.
Right. Now, it is a very good source of a lot of examples of weird stuff that I did at that time. And for the preferences GUI, you do have like 98 to, well, those things like 92 to 99 are the options. So those are child GUIs that all of them are children of the preferences GUI. So if you go ahead and do this GUI, you search for it like Control F1, GUI. So let me just go ahead and search for 94. Right. So this is where I just create the GUI.
Yes.
And I just do it once. Okay, so I just create it once. But then later on, I do use the GUI 94. Here it goes, GUI show, so I show the GUI and then later on I hide it again. So I could just search for GUI 94 to see how I use it. And you will notice that here after a time, I just go ahead and hide it and other stuff. Like, so you could go ahead and grab one of the GUIs. Here you find it.
Yes, and just understand how you did it.
Right, and just go ahead and search for it, 97, for example, and see what I did with those kind of things. I created, so this is the preferences GUI. This is where I create all of them. And when I create one of them, notice that the owner is the other GUI. So I create the GUI as a child of the 6 GUI. And that makes it so that I could just, it's not a normal GUI, kind of. And then later on, I would just show them or hide them depending on what I'm doing. So basically, if I just go ahead and here we go.
Let's simplify this, because if I analyze the whole thing, let's the same way as you did a code. Can you produce a sub GUI as a child that you can switch between 2 different GUIs in a simple code that you wrote?
I would just, if for you, when you have time, grab the AutoHotkey toolkit script and look for this function called preference control. Okay. That is the function that controls whether I will show one function, one GUI or the other. What I did, these numbers here are a variable that contain, check this out. Remember that I had kind of like a tree view going on in here.
Yes.
So P.
I mean, that's cool. I love it. But I've had to have 2 bits to it,
Right. So the P is the parent and the C is the child. So basically I am checking if the parent 1 is the one that you selected.
Yes.
Show the genital. I think this is the genital one. So this is the parent 1 here.
Yeah.
The parent 1 is that one. So if the parent 1, child 1 is selected, so that's this one, the parent 1, child 1, show
the other.
Right. So this is the code that controls that. And what I did was that I used a naming convention. That's what John is doing as well. So the naming convention is C1 is child 1, child 1. Okay. So the child 1 is this one and the child 1 is that one. So the child from that child. Right. Exactly. And basically that allows me, exactly. That allows me to, even though I do not have names, I have a way to track.
So tell me, what are the dollars? I've not encountered them before.
No, so that is something that I did just, again, as part of my naming convention. So in AutoHotkey, your variables can contain many interesting characters. In AutoHotkey version 2, it is more limited to what you can do.
I'm working on one.
Like that. Yeah, so I didn't like that. But in version 1, you can use hashtag as part of your variable. So you can have hashtag name or something like that.
Yeah. I use hashtag to identify variable that I will remove later.
For example,
tree hashtag is something that you see, I need to review that or to remove that when it is just for testing.
Right. So
Isaias, I'm interested to know, excuse me?
Based on your generation, hashtag.
Yeah.
There you go.
Isaias.
I say that. I'm like, in every video, I'm like, hashtag, #, whatever generation you're from.
Yeah.
For me, it's a hashtag because I'm British, and a # is the pound mark instead of the dollar.
So let me see his question. Let me hear his question now.
Yeah, just how do you, when you save the content of your multiple embedded GUIs, what are you doing? Are you checking for every GUI and get the content, or?
No. So basically, well, yeah. Let me go ahead and see what I used.
But I saw that we also had another question from a user. So maybe.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
So XNJ was just asking in general how to make scripts as fast as possible. After a lot of back and forth in the chat, he's trying to automate GTA and apparently has some really good anti-hacking stuff. I don't know if we have anything else to offer. I know both Tom and Spawnova were chiming in there. Is there?
And Sheen as well. So Sheen has a way of measuring his timing as well. He might also talk about that, because basically it boils down to knowing how to time a script, and then each situation that you encounter would have a different way of solving it. So basically, if you know how to time your script properly, that's where you start, and later on finding an answer to that question. It depends on what you're doing, by the way. But so maybe Chin might go ahead and chiming on how he does it.
I mean, I don't use anything fancy. I just use the query performance counter, which it's still not perfect, but it's more accurate than the like tick count in AutoHotkey.
So maybe if you can show that, because many people do not know what you're referring to, that would be
yeah, sure.
How it looks like, at least really quickly.
Yeah, let me go ahead and share screens. I'll open that up.
Yeah, Joe had a great answer where he was just like, what is it, like set something?
Set batch lines, that's a -1.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, if you wanted to get a higher frequency timer than what AutoHotkey allows, there's these DLL calls you can use, and you call one initially to get the frequency, and then this would be your start value, which you could think of this as like tick count, sort of. You would start with this, and then you do some stuff here, and then you call it again to get the next one, which would be after, and then the difference would, or the time anyway, would be the start negative after divided by frequency, and then times it by 1,000, and then this would be in milliseconds how long it took. So and then you would you know, do stuff here. So if you wanted to get higher quality timers, you would do that. There is another way to do it by sending like device sleep period or something, but I don't mess with that.
And one thing to point out, though, which just depending on your level of skills, is often people will be including stuff in their timing that they shouldn't. They don't narrow it down to exactly the thing they're testing, right? And they have other noise in there. What you want to do is when you're developing your code, make sure you're only testing the time on that thing you're trying to optimize, right? Because often people leave in other stuff. And the problem is that it creates noise because there's other things going on, and you want to tie it to the thing you're optimizing as close as you can.
Yes. So any other questions before we move in?
I wonder if I could get my question, and I have to go to work in about 10 minutes.
No problem. Go ahead.
Are you seeing my screen at all?
No.
That's a good question.
Oh, that might be something the host can fix.
Oh, no, hold on. I think I see it. Yes.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it just changed so fast.
So I think my question is about argument order. And it might be more of a personal preference thing. I apologize if it's not super relevant, but I wanted to get your guys' input. As we know, with a lot of arguments, like, for example, in string, you have this haystack and then the needle that you're searching for. I think we can all agree that that's a pretty normal argument order where the haystack is first.
Yeah. This is where I'm going to look for. This is what I'm going to look for.
Now, I in researching how this came about, I guess in PHP, they do it the other way for strings, and the same way, or this way for arrays, and the other way around for string methods. Anyways, my question has to do with this library that I've written. I'm always getting this mixed up because it's not exactly a haystack, but I do have this method called find best match, where you can give an array of strings to search for, and then
what you're looking
main string that you're comparing it to. Now, it's not exactly a haystack, but I'm always getting this confused. For example, here's the array that's being passed in.
So what you're looking across, right? So I think
right.
Your point.
So
it is a haystack in that sense.
Yeah, that's why I was just kind of looking to get input on. Is this, do people think would qualify as a haystack, even though it's not exactly searching for an exact match?
No, it is.
That's kind of what my question was. but it sounds like I'm getting what I want to hear, which
It's
is,
kind of-
yeah, it is
It's
a
kind of
haystack.
funny, right? Right. Because when you break it down to the needle haystack analogy, right?
Mhm.
Which are these things? There's the needle, like the thing you're going to look for, and where are you looking for it? So I think you're spot on, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and basically, usually I would say my preference as a programmer would be the target strings first. But the problem here is the naming convention that you're using, target strings, because target strings for me means what I want to get out of, right?
Right.
Not where I'm looking for, right?
Yeah,
I think the issue here is just the name of those two variables up there. Make it seem like
I have a
the
number
other
of
way
things to
around.
fix. Some of these method names are quite long when I think they should be shorter.
No.
But anyways,
No.
I'll work on that. I do have one other question that I don't really need to screen share for. And that is, I have an old tool that moves files around, and I've recently been asked to add FTP capabilities to that, particularly SFTP, which I guess is secure file tunnel transfer.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think the first videos. I was wondering,
Whoops.
He's
He's cutting out, yeah.
you're in your video, you're talking about kind of like uploading a mail list of some sort. There was no code shown in the video. So I'm wondering, did you use pre-generated like a class or something, or are you just sending all these files by an API?
Unfortunately, your video and audio is cutting out in the question, but I understood part of it had to do with sending emails and doing an API call. Is that correct?
No. I'm trying to move files by secure file tunnel transfer.
You're like cutting out. If you can text us through Zoom, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me give
later. Well, we can answer.
Yeah, and I could just at least chime in a little bit of what I understood. If you're trying to send files through an SFTP tunnel, you will have to use an object, probably the HTTP request object, to actually make the connection between your AutoHotkey script and the location that you're trying to reach. And but you would have to know how to format your request, because when you're sending binary files, you have to send them through the payload, and that payload has to be structured in a specific way, right? It has to be streamed in a specific way. So the clue that I can give, if I'm understanding their question correctly, is that you might want to take a look into the HTTP request object, the COM object.
I have a video on doing binary stuff with HTTP object.
Right. So basically, he's going to do that, and the connection string, the URL, is going to be SFTP / and the location that you want to send it to.
Or because there's the Cute FTP, I think, and WinSCP both have COM objects, if I remember right.
You can use those too.
That you could use to transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there should be multiple ways to go about it. I'm hoping to not require a lot of like external programs.
No, then the HTTP request object that is internal to Windows might help you out on that one.
Thanks, guys. Love the show. Good luck today.
You're welcome.
Okay, John, I think you were in the middle of a question.
Yes, he was.
It was for Isaias about his GUI, embedded GUI. How do we save the content of the various GUIs when the user clicks OK? But it's not a critical question if you have other questions from the users.
Yeah, just go ahead and.
I've lost my YouTube. I wasn't looking at it for a minute.
Right.
I think we're good.
So one of the things that I would say is, as it is a GUI, it is a matter of GUI submit, right? But basically the way how I'm doing it, I disabled the button, right? I just disabled the button, and I have a function that goes ahead and grabs the values of each of the controls, right? And saves that into an XML file. So basically, it is just a GUI. You just do GUI submit no hide or GUI submit, and all the variables of that GUI get saved. So I'm not really sure.
Each time a GUI is shown or hidden when you change the sections of your main
No.
Just
So
at the
basically,
end.
right, exactly. So at that time, that was the norm. So the norm was, and that's the reason why I had like an apply and OK buttons, because you could do some changes in here and apply just those changes, right? So I would apply just that GUI. I hit apply, it would know that I'm in that GUI and submit that GUI and save it into my file. But if I had the OK button, it would submit all the GUIs and save all the sections at once. Now, I could have simplified that and not need those two buttons by doing the save whenever you click on a different. So if you click on this one, it would save whatever you had on that GUI before moving to the next one. So, and that way I wouldn't need an OK or apply button, because
Yeah, and then it's more complete. Yeah, and then it's more complicated when you want to cancel, because you would have to reverse what you already saved. So,
exactly. But in general, that was the reasoning behind having an apply button, because it wouldn't save anything. If I hit close, it doesn't save anything. It would only save when I hit apply, which would save just the current window, or OK, which would save all the windows. And again, as they are windows, it's easier to just say GUI submit, and I have all the variables already, filled. I just had to save that into an XML file or whatever. That was it. But yeah.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome.
Isaias, did you see the? I posted a chat in Telegram. Just Jason had a question, which I think he's figure out what he's asking about.
Does this still load 7? No. So if I understand the question correctly, he's saying, I can check myself. Does the settings window with 6 tabs loading child windows, does it load 7 AHK processes? No, the answer is no, because let me show you my screen again. I think I stopped sharing, probably. The tabs and GUIs are all loaded into one AutoHotkey process. So right now I have on AutoHotkey Toolkit, I have about, hold on. In AutoHotkey Toolkit, I have about, 10, 12 GUIs, a little bit more, okay? So from all those GUIs, I do not have an AutoHotkey process for each of them. I have the main AutoHotkey process, which is the one that has all those GUIs and tabs, okay? All the GUIs and tabs are loaded into that one. And I have a secondary process, which was for the hotkeys and hot strings, because at the time that I was coding that, we didn't have a way to dynamically change hotkeys and hot strings. I had a secondary script that I could reload when I made changes. That was it. So basically, no, you do not get additional processes for each GUI that you create. That's not how it works.
Awesome. Actually, I knew the answer to that. Once you, I didn't see the part about the different threads.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I'm learning so much from you guys just listening in. Absolutely awesome.
That's great. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Now, the other quickie, if you got time, you know how you did a little test for the GUI controls for the checks and unchecks? Can you do one just demonstrating a parent and a sub and a child fold GUI within a GUI? Can you just set 2 up? Well, not with any controls in them, just, simply.
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'm just going to use. So what we want to do, probably.
I had a question when you guys are ready.
Cool.
So just if you guys can start answering his question while I create the code and then I explain it, so that I don't have to be showing the screen. You can guys get the other questions for them.
Tom, why don't you go ahead and throw out.
I don't have the code ready. What's wrong with you? So I want to expand. AutoHotkeys is great, but where would you guys expand? What's the next language?
JavaScript's a really nice one that complements it really well, is my first thing I'd say.
What was it?
JavaScript.
JavaScript. Okay. For me, it's Python.
It's another solid language. Sure.
Yeah.
I'd say Python's quite good too, because there's a lot of support for it. It's got a good community as well.
What I would say, Tom, is honestly, it gets back to what are your goals, right? What do you plan to do? Because it's very different depending on your goals, right? And the area that you work in.
Yeah. What about you, John?
I'm coding in VBA. I learned a lot of languages starting with BASIC in the 80s. But for now, I'm using AutoHotkey and coding some Excel or automation under Microsoft Office using VBA. That's what I'm using. Of course, PHP, MySQL for web things, but Python, I never used that. Yeah.
All right. I just want to know what like people are expanding into. Like AutoHotkey is great. It's your first language. Let's learn it. But where are you going next? Kind of thing. So I agree with the PHP, VBA, that kind of thing.
Well, and like I know for Spinova, right? He's doing stuff in, would you remind me, C# or something, right?
C and C++. I'm not a big fan of C#.
C++
but that's where to me
AutoHotkey is definitely a good way to go.
And that's my point of it. Are you trying to elaborate more on your AutoHotkey stuff? Then I think that, what you suggest changes, right? Also, do you actually want to be a programmer, or do you want to be like, if I'm automating web pages, which is what a lot of people are doing, that's where I'd say JavaScript, I'd be jumping on that in a heartbeat.
You know what I actually do with a lot of websites is I'll actually use a Tamper Monkey, a plugin for Chrome, and it'll send stuff to an AutoHotkey server, and they'll talk back and forth, so I can kind of get around and other stuff as well.
Nice.
Tamper Monkey, I love the name.
It's a Grease Monkey on Firefox.
Grease Monkey, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
What is that?
It's kind of like a AutoHotkey for the browser, sort of. You can edit pages and grab stuff. But it's not AutoHotkey. It's a different.
Okay. Does it work with Chrome?
Yeah.
John's, mine's about to be like blown.
Yeah, it's really, if you like tinkering with scripts, you'll love tinkering with web pages with Tamper Monkey on Chrome and Grease Monkey on Firefox. It's really a lot of fun.
I'll make a note for next time I've got a lockdown. I can sit down and investigate.
Okay, so
okay, we got another question, but go ahead, Isaiah. Go ahead and answer the question that you've solved.
Yeah, so basically, let me show my screen real quick. So let me just 1 second. Let me remove this part so that it doesn't get way too confusing. Remove the part that I'm. So let me show my screen real quick. There's two parts to this thing. Remember that we are trying to embed a GUI inside another GUI. So first of all, we're dealing with two GUIs. Now, different from my time on the scene, now you can name the things. So basically, I'm going to make it easier for you to understand. We have our main window. I just created the main window, right? Now, I'm going to be dealing with the secondary window now. The part that gets a little bit annoying is the options for it. That's the part that you would have to learn, and I would suggest you take a time for that. Now, I just set up the option for no caption, which removes the X things, all those things.
After this, I have a question that's really good.
Okay. Now, you set up to the last found. That was for me for getting the handle of the window. That is not necessary any longer. Now, this is the most important. There's two parts of it that are really important. Let me make these two here. I added a border so that you can see the window, okay? That is not needed, but that's why I'm adding it. Now, this part right here is the most important part. First of all, you're setting the plus owner. The owner means that it belongs to another window, okay? Now, when you say belongs to, it doesn't make much changes other than you cannot, let me show you. When you do that, notice that the window is here. You see this is the sub window that I created, and this is the main window. That one cannot be below the main window. That's what happens when you say that it is owned by another
Okay, it's
window.
always on top.
It is always on top of the main window, but it can be behind other windows. So it is behind this one here, okay?
It moves with the main window, basically.
No, not yet. So right now, notice that I moved the main window, but the other one is not moving with it.
Ah, okay.
The only thing that owner says is that this window can never be below the main window. Below the main window. It can be below other stuff, but not the main window. That's what it says.
Okay.
Now, the other two down here, they do not have names in AutoHotkey yet. I don't know if at some point they will do it, but they are messages that I'm sending to it. So this one here, the WS pop-up, I think is the same as the caption. And this one plus WS child is this number right here. That's the one that tells it is a child window and it moves with the owner. So if I commented that out, I open it, now they are both kind of like linked together. That's what it happens. You see that?
Awesome.
So the idea here is, and remember, I have to show it, because if I don't show it, what is going to happen is that I will not be able to see the window.
Yep.
It is there, but
Yep.
I'm not showing it. And that's what I usually do with the preferences windows. I create them, but don't show them. I just show them when I want. And when I show them as they are children, now, even if I move my window, they move with it. So that's where you get this effect of that the general preferences move with it. So it is because they're child windows, they are there.
And that is so awesome, because without having to rework your code, understanding that concept, I can easily place a main window, two other windows on top of it, and two buttons at the bottom without having to worry about all the other convoluted.
Right, exactly. So that's exactly why I did that, because now my child windows can change without me having to recreate the buttons down here for each of them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I have a main window that doesn't change, which is the title here and the list view here, and the buttons are run down here. The only thing that changes often is the ones in the middle. That's what it.
And if you don't need the tree on the left, that makes life so much easier
as well. Right. So
I mean, that is absolutely killer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So if there are any other questions.
One thing I would put in there as well is you can also call to set parent to make any child's or any window a child to another window.
Yes.
Which can also be useful if you want to like incorporate different GUIs and different applications.
Yep, that is right. So in my case, I set it a child when I created it.
Yep.
But what you're actually talking about is that after the windows are created, you can actually just set them as a child of a main window at any point. And it could be any window. So it could be any window.
Actually, so funny enough,
that's been really useful when you're adding a toolbar to a program. Yeah.
One thing I used it for was to actually put something onto the desktop backgrounds. So you can put a window straight onto the desktop, which is pretty cool.
Yep, that is great.
So Tom,
Tom, I think had a question, right?
Maybe he's gone to work. Has he vanished?
Maybe. Maybe he's muted. For Guy, you remember? I remember that you were actually asking about the $sign.
Yes.
Right.
It was just... I had someone asking, why use AHK versus other languages?
Okay.
How long have you got?
That's it.
The GUIs we're doing right now. Imagine doing that in another language, right? That's one, right?
I think that's the basic general answer. It's so much easier to use. Yeah.
Simple.
It's the Swiss Army knife for Windows, right? You can
absolutely
connect. It's so easy. I mean, you go to use Python and try to connect to like a Windows interface, and one, there's nothing out of the box, right? Like you got to go get module after module after module and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and you can right click and create an executable, right? Like, holy hell, right? And you can do almost anything you want.
Yep. No, I agree with Python. I'm like, Python's good for automation, but AutoHotkey is so simple.
No, I would rephrase everything you guys said into something a little bit more kind of like concrete. Right. And here's the thing. First of all, most of the languages have their uses. Python is good at certain specific things, JavaScript at others, and there are some general purpose languages. But what happens with AutoHotkey is that it started with automating Windows specifically, okay? It is not for automating other stuff. So as it is for automating Windows, anything that you want to do in Windows itself usually comes easier in AutoHotkey. Python was not made for automating Windows. It was made for automating other stuff, okay? Especially for web applications, okay? Not specifically for Windows. And actually Python is, I think, cross-platform, right? I think
yeah, it is.
It is, right? So it is not built for automating Windows specifically. So it comes with a lot of things that has to be cross-platform. AutoHotkey is not like that. It's actually specifically for Windows. And that makes a lot of actions, Windows things like creating GUIs, creating hotkeys, opening, closing windows, and other things way easier just because it was built specifically for that. That's the point of it.
Yeah, in this world, everybody has like a Windows, Mac, Linux.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have like diversity.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone asked, and I forget where I saw this somewhere, maybe he commented on the video, but if there's a way to connect to MQTT from AutoHotkey. I don't know what MQTT is. Does anybody know?
You know what? Well, I'm not really sure. So maybe somebody who has worked with that. So now is MQTT kind of like a window library, like Qt? I don't know, Joe, we were referring to Qt a while ago. It is a window library. Maybe it is a library like that. I'm not really sure. If you can clarify that. And if it is a library, yes, you can connect to any library. If it is a DLL file, yes, you can. Standard
for IoT messaging.
Oh, okay. I know what it is. So IoT is actually Internet of Things. So I would assume it's a library. It is an executable or library. And based on that, I would say totally 100% with DLL calls. It's not as simple as you might want to, but yes, you can.
Joe?
Yep.
There was a question from Misophoniac about changing hot string or adding hot strings.
Yeah,
I would have a little script that can demonstrate that does something very simple where you can save your hot string in a text file and reload your strings from this text file. Instead of changing the script, you could just change the text file and run the script just to refresh your hot strings. A very simple example that I wrote in 2 minutes if it can answer the question from Misophoniac.
Well, yeah, and there's definitely and I it's funny, I sent that message to my friend Gabe instead of Isaiah's in Telegram. He's like, what the hell is this? Anyway, yeah, I had meant to I'm like give it to you to take a quick look at. But there are, there's the hotkey helper also, which it's on the documentation page, right? And then there's several. What's the one that starts with an L, and it's a very robust tool. It's a little too robust for me, honestly. Written in AutoHotkey that you can actually even do HTML replace, insert HTML, insert pictures, from hot strings, and you can have short hot strings and longer hot strings. Is that ringing any bell?
Sure.
List and view. Oh man, I can't think of what it is. It's at the tip of my tongue.
Maybe I'm interested in what John has. Like, I want to see that script that he's referring to.
Yep, it's very simple. I'll make it larger. So I have a text file here that contains hot strings, you know, the abbreviation, if you wish, starting with the two column, where you could put options if you wish here. Then a separator, I'm using the pipe. It could be tab, it could be something else if you need to use pipes inside your hot string, but that's usually what I use. And I have these three examples here. So this text file is read by a loop command that reads the file that here is stored in the same folder where I have my hot strings AHK script. And it reads the first line, split it in two sections, split it at the pipe. And I have a message box that will show what is, just for debugging, show what's the content of this line. And then it will use the new function that has been added maybe 1 year ago, a function that allows to create hot strings from variable, something that was not possible earlier. And first parameter is the hot string. So it will be, for example, h1 $, or hashtag, or depending, as you said earlier. Then the second parameter is the content of this hot string. So let's say that I say for the first one, hello, Joe, save it. And when I run this, so it says here that I have this h1 hot string hello Joe, then hot string 2, hot string 3. There's an empty line that I should have removed, and because of this empty line, it's very rudimentary code. So you would have to plan for empty lines. For now, we'll just remove it and start it again. 1, 2, 3, and from now on, I have this hot string being there. Instead of changing the script, and maybe it's some, so all I have to do is, so I rerun this, I change the hot string text file, and then I rerun the script, the old script, or just if I have a hotkey, it can be inside a longer script where you have various commands with various hotkeys, but you just have to execute this piece of code here that will update the content. Of course, there's some options here where you can turn on, turn off, or toggle the hot strings, but basically that's the way you could manage your hot strings. If you don't want to use tools that do it, as Joe mentioned, and I will just take the opportunity to see that quick access pop-up also allows to create hot strings for text snippets or for various content that you would have in your menu.
And the nice thing about QAP is, you know, it's in a GUI. You don't have to know AutoHotkey at all, but also you could have a hotkey to trigger the same snippet, and a GUI if you forgot it, right? Or the hot string, and the menu. 3 of those can be used to and your GUI menu. And it's, so I actually put a lot of it in QAP because I can't remember all of the things I have snippets for, unfortunately, because I have so many. But yeah, it's a great tool, and it's available in 10 languages. Sean, is that right?
Yep.
Now let me chime in there. There was a little detail of his question that kind of like caught my attention. He said that he might be creating a GUI, and in the GUI he wants to hit OK and actually update the thing. So what John showed is exactly what you want in the button in your GUI. So on your GUI, when you hit OK, if it is a button that says OK, you have to grab that code for the hotkey command, or hot string in this case. And from your GUI, you take the hot string, split it however you want, and then pass it to that function.
The source would be the edit control content,
exactly.
for example,
So,
instead of the text file.
Of a file. Instead of a file, because in this case, you don't want to have a file or whatever. If you want to do it directly in the GUI, that's how you do it. So and it seems to be, it was funny because it is exactly what happened to me that time ago, 10 years ago. I didn't have a way to update an existing hot string without having to stop the script and restart it. which is the reason why I mentioned on my taskbar, I have two scripts running, because one of them was the main script and the other one was one that I wanted to reload if something changed.
Mhm.
That's what he wants to avoid, having a separate script or a separate file. In that case, the hot string function that you just showed is exactly what you need, because it allows you to update an existing hot string.
And
So
when we didn't have this hot strings function,
yeah, it was very
it was not
annoying.
possible to read value from a text file, for example.
No,
to
you
create a
couldn't
string.
do even that.
Yeah.
No, you couldn't do
Yeah.
any of that, right?
Yeah,
So
but
it was
now it's
very
possible.
annoying.
Thanks to
Yeah.
Lexicos, the one
Yeah.
that did that.
Well, Jean, just because I remember talking to you about it, you had done all this work, and then
yeah.
like right when you're getting ready to publish, that became available, if I remember right.
Yeah.
You
In
were
fact,
like,
I coded the hot string parser, if you wish, getting the keyboard input and accumulating the input, checking at every character if it was a hot string or not. And I wasn't confident that it would be very solid because I was just trying this because I needed it, and it was not possible without the function. And yes, as Joe said, I think that I was starting to test it with Joe, and then at some point, Lexicos released the function hot strings. Thanks to Lexicos.
I don't think I've ever heard Jean swear, but I'm pretty sure he hit mute at that point. None of them.
No, so
Well, I'm sure it was a great learning process for you, Jean, because
Yeah.
you know, by applying yourself, you know, little things make huge differences for later on.
I was under the impression that monitoring the keyboard, getting every key and checking if it is a hot string, always, regardless what you do on your computer, that would be time consuming or new processor consuming. And no, it was not. And it's not worse than what AutoHotkey is doing itself when it monitors. Yeah, it was just one more monitoring of the keyboard, but it was milliseconds of processing time. So it's doable to do something like that. And of course, I've seen other example of that on the forum. So I was not the first who invented that. I started from what others also did before, but it's much more convenient to use something done by Lexicos, and you're sure that it is well integrated with the runtime of AutoHotkey.
Jean, Michael in the chat wants to know if you can make those hot strings context sensitive to just active to a given program, like with the if when active.
That's a good question. That's a very good question. And I think you can. Hold on.
If
we inactive directive,
why AutoHotkey is amazing, right? Is that actually compartmentalizing like
yes. At least in version 1, confirmed, if you use the if win active directives, or if win exist, or if win not active, you know, they make hotkeys and hot strings context sensitive. So you use the directive. Let me just put it here just in case, if you're not really sure how that works. You put the if win active directive, put the name of the function, and any hotkey that you set up.
Just don't forget you did that.
Yeah, that's true. And any hot strings that you try, you have to go ahead and also, I usually put an if win active at the bottom. That way, if I add anything else, I don't forget to remove the context sensitivity. But those two things would only work in any window that says notepad in front of it.
Yeah, well, I think he was asking how you would do that with the hot string function that Jean was showing earlier.
Basically, and that's the reason why I mentioned this directive is because I would assume, I will check, that hot string,
it'll still be sticky in the sense
like
of
this thing here. So if it does this, sorry.
Yeah, 5 minutes, by the way, and then we're out of time. No pressure.
No pressure, right? Okay. So
and by the way, Lentilist is the other tool, just if anyone is over my head. It's an amazing tool for doing hotkeys, hot strings, and a bunch of other crap that you just blow your mind.
Let me double check.
What's it called again?
It's over my head. Not programmatically over my head. It's literally over my head.
Oh, okay.
Here it is. So the string might be matched to an existing hot string, okay? Activation criteria, which are set by if win, or the triggering string. So basically, I would test it later, that if win active like this, what I just did, if you put the function below that directive, it would make it so that it is context sensitive. But it doesn't make much sense to me because directives are read the first time, right? And functions might be dynamic, but maybe it does. It says that it is sensitive to that. So
I just tried to add it to my script and can share it. It doesn't work, but maybe there's something we could find in the 3 minutes remaining.
Oh, hold on. Here it is. Hotkey if win active. This is what you have to do. So instead of a directive, you can use the command version of it. So hold on.
But with the command, you cannot use a variable, I think, coming from...
No, you call it before you do the hot string function.
So you call it like this. You call hotkey if win active, and then you put the group in here. And then you put the hot string function below that.
Mm-hmm. Let me share my screen. Maybe just could see what maybe it won't work the first time, but together. So sharing here. Oh, excuse me. I can share over you, Isaiah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop it.
No, I can interrupt. Okay. So in my text file for the first hot string, I added after a second pipe character, I added notepad. So this would make this hot string work only in notepad if we code the things correctly here. So here my array contains a third part
array
that will be notepad for the first line, empty for the other lines. And I say here hotkey if when active, then the content of this third parameter, which should be notepad, and then the hot string as it was before. Not sure if my curly brackets are okay. 1, 2, 3. Seems to be okay.
I don't think you need curly brackets.
I don't think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're
1, 2, 3. Okay, so I just see that the first one we have notepad, maybe small here, but so when the first one is executed, it is when active. Maybe I should do that only if there is something here. Maybe I should do here if
array
if there's something in this, then do that.
Yeah. That if we just the hotkey command.
Just the hotkey command.
Yeah,
okay.
That one you can put it outside. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't need curly brackets here.
Right.
Do I need to put the and?
No.
I don't need to close this if when active? You don't think
so.
Okay, so let's try it.
Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
So 1, 2, and 3. And now if I type H1, it's still working even if I am not in Notepad because there's no Notepad in this window name here. No, sure. Right. So there's something that is not activating this when active command here.
Yeah, that's where we would actually just kind of like debug a little bit. What we're going to do is that later on, I'm going to give you kind of like an example script that we might show on the Automator, Joe. Maybe we could add a gist or something.
Or come back on this next week.
Right, that is because it is a very good question. I know that it's possible because the documentation says that it is. Now, what we could do, and basically you said that it is just 5 minutes gone, but we could just grab this code and test it. I could just paste it here, use Notepad, right? And I think it's like this.
Well, the thing is at 11:30 we have to charge double.
Yeah, we can do that. But basically,
I'll take it on my account. Put it on my bill.
Basically, that script right there should work. So if I say this and I say BTW space, nothing should happen. BTW tab, nothing should happen. Yeah. If I open Notepad and I just go ahead and say,
yes,
oh, you know what? This one should not work exactly because No, it should say.
Oh, but by
set,
default,
the WinZip title is like,
Hmm.
sorry, the title match mode. Title, set title match mode.
Match
to,
mode.
I think that would make it so that it is everywhere on the code, right? So let me double check that again.
you need to
course.
move.
And this is where, AutoHotkey can be frustrating, right? Where I think it was 2 weeks ago, we spent an hour working on getting some simple, I think it was a hot string to work properly,
Yeah.
right? It was
BTW2. I'm not seeing it, but I will double check on that. Maybe when we take a look at it.
Yeah, and the other thing to check is, IS, when you do it, try putting Notepad inside a variable instead of typing Notepad.
Right, exactly.
Because it was one of the limitation before we had the function.
Yeah,
so,
it would be in a variable. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a working example, because reading the
try it in V2.
yeah, so reading this thing, it says creating duplicate hot strings. So that means that they are
for the same string you have different.
right. So I think copying this code and putting it should work. We do have a little bit of a thing going on, but I think that should work. It is possible. The only thing is how it is.
How to identify the window. Maybe.
Yeah, that was supposed to be okay. Like set title match mode 2, because that one title match mode 2 means anywhere inside.
Yeah.
So that should be even at the end. That should be working fine. But for some reason, unless I'm doing something wrong, it is not just doing what I think it should be doing. So maybe
you have homework.
Close it. Yeah, I have homework. Yeah, I do have to verify if that actually somehow works. The point is that I thought that just by so let me double check something. Just by removing the if statement, that should give me something that if I say BTW, oh, it's not working. Ah, that's why.
Why isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Do you need?
So basically, this would make it so that as soon as I type BTW, it should work, right? Or let me try something. ATM.
You of course you run it before. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm running it. ATM. Oh, hold on. You know what? I know what it is. Ha! This is funny. I have to make this thing persistent. If you don't do that, the script.
So
with your tool, Yeah.
No, well, in general, I think that's what is going on, so that and notice that I run it and it disappears right away. It's not staying there. So there's something going on. I will figure it out so that we don't take too much time on that.
Overtime, too much overtime.
Yeah, overtime. Yeah. But yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Isaiah.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Everyone.
Thank you. I learned a lot.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.